The Richelieu River takes its source in Lake Champlain, from which it flows to the north in the province of Quebec, Canada, and empties into the St. Lawrence River. It was formerly known as the Iroquois River and the Champlain River. This river was a key route of water transport for cross-border trade between Canada and the United States, until the arrival of the railway in the mid-19th century. Because of its strategic position between New France and New England, several military fortifications were erected on the course of the river. It served as a key pathway for several military tours and was the scene of several battles between the end of the 17th and early 19th centuries. First between the French and the Iroquois, then between the French and the English, during the regime of the New France, and finally between the English and the Americans after 1760. Geography and hydrography. The Richelieu River has a drainage basin of 23,720 square kilometers, including those of Lake Champlain 19,925 square kilometers and Bay Missisquoi. Of this, 19,600 square kilometers are in the United States, originating in the western slopes of the Green Mountains in the eastern slopes of the Adirondack Mountains of New York State. The Champlain Valley makes up most of the drainage basin, with a length of 124 kilometers. The Richelieu River takes its source at the north end of Lake Champlain on the border between Canada and the United States. The river flows through many towns: Lecola, Ilonoix, Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, Champlain, Bellerie, Saint-Charles-sur-Richelieu, Saint-Denis-sur-Richelieu, Saint-Ours and Sorel-Tracy, where the river empties into the St. Lawrence River, around 40 kilometers northeast of Montreal and southwest of Quebec City. The Richelieu River is the largest tributary of the south shore of St. Lawrence River and drains a large area of southern Quebec. The Quebec portion of the watershed includes 18 lakes and ponds, as well as 40 rivers and tributary streams of the Richelieu. The main Richelieu tributaries are rivers Acadia, South Huron and Lecola. The river's mean discharge is 330 cubic meters per second. Nearly 340,000 people across 8 regional county municipalities and 65 municipalities live in the Quebec portion of the watershed of the river. The population density is very high compared to that of most other regions of the province of Quebec. Just over 70% of this area is used for agricultural purposes. With the opening of the Champlain Canal in 1843, navigation became possible on the Richelieu between the St. Lawrence River and Lake Champlain. At the southern end of the lake, the Champlain Canal allows for navigation to the Hudson River and, downstream, the city of New York, where the river flows into the Atlantic Ocean. Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, Champlain, Bellerie, Mont-Saint-Hilaire, and Sorel-Tracy are important communities on its route. River course and hydrology. The average slope of the Richelieu River is 0.19 meters per kilometer, but 24 meters in elevation between Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu and Champlain for an average flow of 330 cubic meters per second. By convention, the Richelieu is generally divided into 3 main sections. The Eau Richelieu. It is characterized by a very low drop, with a width of about 1.5 kilometers at its southern end. It becomes increasingly narrow. It passes through the city of Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, which now includes Iberville and Saint-Luc. The Champlain Canal. Due to its significant drop in this area, 25 meters over 12 kilometers, the river has many rapids. The channel consists of 9 locks and a length of nearly 19 kilometers, allowing boats to navigate past the rapids. In Champlain, the river widens and forms the Champlain Basin, a popular area for nautical activities. The Bar Richelieu. In this section, the river passes the cities of Ottawa and Parc of Bellerie, the Mont-Saint-Hilaire and municipalities McMasterville of Saint-Charles-sur-Richelieu and Saint-Denis-sur-Richelieu. In Saint-Ours, the river is again characterized by a sudden drop before emptying into the St. Lawrence River at Sorel-Tracy. southwest of Lake St. Pierre. Several river islands are along the route of the Richelieu River. Arguably the most famous, Isle-aux-Noix, is in the Haut-Richelieu and houses Fort Lennox, considered a National Historic Site of Canada. Downstream, the St. Thérèse Island near Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu is the largest island on the Richelieu. Formerly agricultural, it is now largely residential. It also previously housed the Fort St. Thérèse, built in 1665, but abandoned at the end of the 18th century and now disappeared. Le Richelieu is one of three rivers flowing from Quebec south to north, the other two being the Chateauguay and Chaudière. Ice jams can form in the spring with the melting of ice in the south while the north is still frozen, causing floods. Tributaries in Quebec: part l'Acadia River, 82 km. Mouth: Carignan. South River, 39.1 km. Mouth: Henryville. Amiot River, 11.7 km. Mouth: St. Charles-sur-Richelieu. Le Colla River, 24 km. Mouth: Le Colla. Herons River, 33 km. Mouth: St. Matthias-sur-Richelieu. Iroquois River, 10.1 km. Mouth: St. John-sur-Richelieu. Bernier River, 12.9 km. Mouth: St. John-sur-Richelieu. Massé Stream. Mouth: Carignan. Bernard Stream East. Mouth: Otterburn Park. Bernard Stream West. Mouth: McMasterville. North Stream in. South Stream in. Geology: the valley of the Richelieu River is based on sedimentary rocks formed during the Cambrian of the Paleozoic era around 450 million years ago. The bedrock consists of shale, clay and sandstone. The shales are sedimentary rocks from the mechanical disintegration of pre-existing rocks. The sandstones are composed of quartz grains joined together and are always the result of deposition of shoreline. The Utica shale usually contain an abundance of mica flakes and important content of quartz. The Utica shale is especially conducive to the shale gas exploitation. Those of Lorraine group are dark gray color, and contain also sandstone lenses up to 5 cm thick. These are the rocks of the Lorraine group that cover most of the area. This group contains the younger sedimentary rocks of the region, a series of shales and calcareouses that turn red in the upper parts. Historically, the formation of rocks in the region is due to its immersion, towards the end of the Ordovician geological era, which led to the establishment of marine sediments. Then raised by tectonic forces, the entire region has been subjected to a long erosion since the end of the Ordovician to the late Tertiary. Subsequently, after being covered with a thick layer of ice during the Quaternary, the lowlands of the St. Lawrence was overwhelmed by the Champlain Sea in the wake of the collapse of the foundation, underlying therefore the weight of glaciers. After dropping clays and sands, the sea had to decline, following the recovery of the base, and left the area in its current state. The valley has a few pronounced relief that is covered with a large clay deposit of up to 50 meters thick. The lowlands were once part of plain of alluviums of St. Lawrence Valley, greater than it is today. In a relatively recent geological time, glaciation changed the relief, which subsequently was reduced by sediment deposits dating from the post-glacial of Champlain Sea. The most prominent of the watershed of the river geological formation is also formed by the Montérégie Hills. In addition, nearly half of the banks of the Richelieu River are kept in natural state. Regarding the hydrogeology of the area, there are two major classes of surficial: permeable and little or no permeability. In the first case, we find sand and gravel formations for the establishment of wells that can theoretically power a community network or industry. In the second case, there are formations that permit at most the implementation of individual wells. A third category has been emerged, that of permeable surficial buried underlying impermeable horizon, which are often highly productive aquifers. Permeable surficial sand and gravel together from various sources and represent 18% of the entire region. The little furniture or not permeable deposits consist of unconsolidated sediments which occupy 62% of the area. It includes the compact clay or silty matrix till, glaciolacustrine sediments for the Champlain sea clay, fine current and organic sediment floodplain sediments. History. Native American occupation. Before the arrival of the French, the Richelieu River was visited by Iroquois, the Hurons and Algonquin. French explorers. In 1535, the French explorer Jacques Cartier discovered the mouth of Richelieu River during his second travel in New France. Samuel de Champlain and his team reaches the mouth of the river in 1603. Champlain returned to the river in 1608 and in 1609, exploring upriver to modern-day Albany, New York. Toponymy. The river was formerly named Massiliantec, which means water where there is plenty of food, in Abenaki. Called the Iroquois River at the beginning of the colony, some early journals and maps refer to the lower river as the Sorel River. Its French name comes from the name of Cardinal Richelieu, minister of Louis XIII, as well as Fort Richelieu. 5 forts. Already an important pathway for the Iroquois natives, the Richelieu River soon became one for French traders as well. French regime built 5 forts along its length. Fort Richelieu at its mouth, Fort St. Louis in Chambly, Fort St. Herries and Fort St. John upriver, and Fort St. Anne on the Isle La Motte, Vermont in Lake Champlain near its source. In the 17th century, the repeated assaults of the Iroquois endangered the existence of the French colony of America. The first military posts, as Fort Richelieu in Sorel and the Fort St. John, are built. The latter, built in 1666, led to the founding of the city of St. John, today St. John-sur-Richelieu. In the 18th century, the region was a strategic location increasingly coveted by the French and British colonial empires. The two powers wished to expand their territory and control the fur trade. Between 1819 and 1829, the British built Fort Lennox on an island of the Richelieu River, near the Canada-US border, to prevent against possible attacks from Americans after the War of 1812. English and French built fortified posts larger, such as the Fort Lennox of Illinois, Fort St. Herries and Fort St. Louis. These fortifications and the fertile lands of the river will attract farmers. It was at this time that the region of Richelieu gets its nickname, Valley of the Strongholds. After 1759 to 1760, the period of the British conquest of New France, and after the War of Independence of the United States, the British military and loyal come to settle on the banks of the Richelieu. The battles of St. Denis and St. Charles occur along the Richelieu, during the 1837 French-Canadian Rebellion. In 1812, Americans borrowed the sea to invade their northern neighbor. Economy. During the 19th century, the Richelieu became an important economic thoroughfare instead of a warpath. In 1843, construction of the Chambly Canal was completed, bypassing the rapids, allowing easier transportation of export products such as sawlogs, pulp, hay, and coal from Canada to the United States. Following this first channel, a network of channels are formed. These allow to join the Hudson River and then New York. International trade between Canada and the United States becomes possible. Sorel and St. John-sur-Richelieu, which were both incorporated in the 1850s, arose as a direct result of the increased traffic on the Richelieu. Railroad development. By the end of the 19th century, however, railroads had largely replaced the river as commercial arteries. A tragic intersection of the two modes of transport occurred in 1864 when a train plunged off a swing bridge into the river after missing a red signal, killing 99 people. Touristic industry. Tourists visit New York and Montreal through the river. Its contribution to regional prosperity is so crucial in the middle of the century. St. John turned to be the most important of Quebec and Canada in a harbour. The resort has largely replaced the business generated by the Richelieu, considered a heritage corridor. The river, which crosses densely populated areas as well as several agricultural land, is an ecological challenge, especially down Basin Champlain. Measures concerning wastewater treatment reduced the presence of certain pollutants in recent years. Gallery of old images. Map of Fort St. John and other forts on the Richelieu River circa 1666 for the campaign of the Regiment of Carignan-Salieres. Fort St. John on Richelieu River in Canada during the 1750s. Fort St. John on Richelieu River in Canada during the 1750s. Fort St. John circa 1775. Siege of the fort. Passage of the Richelieu by night. Fort St. Terry's on Richelieu River. Recreation. Although its commercial significance has waned, the Richelieu has remained an important recreational waterway. The Champlain Canal permits pleasure boats to bypass the rapids at Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu and Champlain. The Champlain Canal and Lake Champlain form the U.S. portion of the Lakes to Locks Passage, linking with the Hudson River and allowing navigation using the Richelieu between the St. Lawrence River and New York City and the Erie Canal. The Piste cyclable du Canal de Champlain is a 20 km bicycle path that follows the towpath along the canal. The bike path is part of Quebec's Route Verte bicycle path network. The canal is a National Historic Site operated by Parks Canada. The agency also manages other National Historic Sites along the river: Fort Champlain, Fort St. Terry's, and St. Ours Canal. Given the rich historical past of the region, the Richelieu River brings in its banks and its islands several sites, some of which are owned by Parks Canada. National Historic Site: Canal Champlain National Historic Site, the Fort Lennox, the Fort St. John. As for the National Historic Site of Fort Champlain, it receives every year thousands of visitors during the 20 savers. http://www.beerssavers.com/ celebrated the first days of September. In addition, the curious visitor to learn more about the history of the region could go to 20 Top Richelieu, http://www.musée-du-haut-richelieu.com/actualm.html. St. Jean-sur-Richelieu. Fishing. The Richelieu, which is home to more than 50 species of fish, offers excellent sport fishing opportunities. Important sport species include northern pike, longnose gar, bowfin, smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, carp, and black crappie. But the Richelieu also hosts several threatened or endangered species, such as the copper redhorse, river redhorse, and lake sturgeon. So fishing seasons and capture limits are regulated. Since agricultural products Montérégie enjoy an enviable reputation, many restaurateurs settle near the Richelieu River to combine fine dining and picturesque landscape. True country of maple and apple cider and sugar shacks abound in the area.